Have you ever wondered why being alone feels so heavy, like silence pressing against your chest, as if the absence of others somehow means the absence of meaning? So many people fear solitude, not because they cannot endure it, but because they have never learned how to embrace it. They mistake being alone with being lonely, and they run from it, filling every quiet space with noise, distraction, or people who don't really add value to their lives. But here is the truth. The ability to be at peace with yourself, to find happiness within your own presence, is one of the most powerful skills you can ever master. It is the foundation of real confidence, unshakable strength, and lasting peace. Think about it. How often have you felt dependent on someone else for your sense of worth, for your happiness, or even just to avoid that feeling of emptiness? The world trains you to believe that without relationships, without validation, without constant social approval, you are somehow incomplete. But that belief is a trap because it keeps your happiness tied to things you cannot control. People will come and go. Circumstances will change. Life will never stop shifting. If your peace depends on the outside world, then you will always be at its mercy. But imagine a different reality. Imagine reaching a place where you no longer fear being alone, where solitude becomes a gift instead of a burden. Imagine walking into silence and feeling calm instead of restless. Imagine knowing that no matter who walks in or out of your life, you remain whole, steady, and at peace. That kind of power cannot be taken from you, cannot be stolen, betrayed, or broken because it comes from within. That is what learning to be happy alone gives you. The kind of freedom most people spend their entire lives chasing. The moment you start embracing solitude, you begin to reconnect with your true self. Beneath all the noise, the roles, and the expectations placed on you, there is a version of you that is raw, real, and complete. Solitude creates the space for you to meet that version of yourself again. It is in the quiet moments that your deepest clarity rises, that your mind sharpens, and that your heart begins to heal. Alone does not mean empty. Alone means available for growth, available for peace, available for self-discovery. This journey is not about rejecting others or closing yourself off from love and connection. It is about no longer depending on them to fill the void inside you. It is about learning to love your own company so deeply that when someone does enter your life, they add to your peace rather than become the source of it. That is the difference between living in fear of losing people and living with the strength of knowing you will be fine no matter what. If you stay with this message, if you open your mind and allow yourself to go deeper, you will discover a kind of inner happiness that no external condition can touch. You will begin to understand that peace is not found in the presence of others, but in the presence of yourself. And once you master that, you will never again feel powerless, incomplete, or afraid of being alone. You will step into a life of freedom, strength, and true peace, the kind of life that very few ever dare to create, but one that you are more than capable of claiming right now. Most people never realize that the discomfort they feel when they are alone is not about the absence of others, but about the absence of themselves. They are surrounded by distractions for so long that when the noise disappears, they are forced to face the thoughts, doubts, and insecurities they've been avoiding. That is why silence feels so loud. It is not empty. It is filled with everything you've been running from. But here's the powerful truth. Facing yourself in solitude is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. Because what feels uncomfortable at first is the very path that leads you to strength, clarity, and unshakable peace. Your greatest transformation begins when you stop searching for someone else to complete you and start looking within to understand yourself. The world constantly pulls your attention outward. Social media, constant opinions, and the endless need to compare yourself against others keep you trapped in a cycle of seeking validation. But when you learn to shift your focus inward, you discover a source of stability that no one can take away. You begin to see that your value does not rise and fall with attention, with likes, with approval, or with relationships. Your value is permanent, unchanging, and it comes from simply being who you are. Solitude is not punishment, it is opportunity. In those quiet moments, you get to hear your own voice without interference. You get to recognize your true desires without influence. You get to build a relationship with yourself that is grounded in respect, compassion, and acceptance. Imagine treating yourself as kindly as you would someone you deeply love. Imagine recognizing your own worth before anyone else has the chance to measure it. That is the gift of learning to be happy alone. It's not just about peace. It is about power. Psychology shows us that people who can find contentment in solitude develop higher emotional resilience. They are less likely to settle for toxic relationships, less likely to fall into destructive habits, and more likely to pursue goals that align with their true values. Why? Because they are no longer controlled by the fear of being alone. They don't need external approval to feel whole. They don't chase acceptance at the cost of their own happiness. They move from a place of strength rather than desperation. This shift changes everything because when you no longer fear losing people, you gain the ability to choose relationships and opportunities that truly serve your growth. The peace you find in being alone does not mean you close your heart to the world. It means you open your heart without fear because you know you will not be destroyed if someone walks away. It means you can give love without attachment, receive it without dependency, and experience it without losing yourself in the process. That is true freedom, the ability to remain whole while sharing your life with others. Stay with this thought. Happiness that depends on others will always be fragile, but happiness that is born within you becomes unbreakable. When you can sit in silence and feel at home, when you can stand alone and still feel complete, you unlock a level of strength and peace that no loss, no rejection, no circumstance can ever take away. That is the life waiting for you when you stop fearing solitude and start embracing it. The fear of solitude is often rooted in the belief that without constant connection, life loses meaning. But the truth is the opposite. Life gains its deepest meaning when you learn to stand fully present with yourself. When you can find fulfillment in your own presence, you unlock a state of independence that most people never reach. You are no longer defined by who stands beside you or who fails to show up. You no longer wait for external permission to feel joy, peace, or worth. Instead, you carry those things within you, available at all times, untouched by circumstances. Happiness alone is not about cutting yourself off from others. It is about no longer fearing what happens when the room grows quiet. It is about no longer feeling restless when you are by yourself. It is about discovering that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you build with your own mind and heart. That relationship sets the tone for everything else in your life. If you reject yourself, you will always seek others to fill the gap. If you accept yourself, you will always bring wholeness into every interaction. Being happy alone requires courage because it forces you to confront parts of yourself you may have hidden behind distractions. But facing yourself is where true healing begins. It is where you strip away the false mask you've been wearing and finally come back to your essence. This is not weakness. It is power. It takes strength to look at your own reflection and embrace it without judgment. It takes resilience to sit with your own thoughts and not run from them. And it takes wisdom to realize that your peace is not built by escaping yourself, but by befriending yourself. When you can cultivate joy in solitude, you become unstoppable. You stop needing temporary fixes for your emptiness. You stop chasing approval from those who do not value you. You stop clinging to unhealthy situations out of fear of being left alone. Instead, you rise into a version of yourself that is whole, calm, and magnetic. People will sense your inner peace, but more importantly, you will feel unshakable from within. You will know that no matter what storms life throws your way, you carry a calm center that cannot be touched. Science confirms this truth. Solitude, when embraced, strengthens creativity, focus, and emotional balance. It gives your brain the rest it needs from constant noise, allowing you to reset and realign with your true values. It clears the fog created by external pressure and reconnects you with what truly matters. You begin to act not from fear, but from clarity. You begin to live not from lack, but from fullness. And when you live from fullness, you attract experiences, relationships, and opportunities that reflect your inner strength. Solitude becomes your training ground for freedom. It teaches you that you are enough. It teaches you that your worth is not negotiable. It teaches you that your peace does not need to be borrowed from anyone else. And when you reach that place, life opens in a new way. You no longer walk through it chained by fear of rejection or loss. You walk through it with freedom, with lightness, with power, alone, but never lonely, complete, and at peace. When you realize that your happiness does not depend on the presence of others, you begin to experience life in its purest form. You stop living as a prisoner to constant expectations, and you start living as the architect of your own inner world. This shift is more than just emotional. It rewires how you think, how you respond, and how you carry yourself every single day. You begin to move with a quiet confidence that does not shout but radiates. You stop begging the world to validate you because you have already validated yourself. That energy cannot be faked, and it cannot be broken. The mind, when left untrained, craves constant stimulation, but when you train it to find peace and stillness, you take control back from the chaos. You stop reacting to every external noise and learn to rest in your own presence. This is not avoidance. It is mastery. It is choosing to direct your energy toward what nourishes you rather than scattering it in search of attention that never truly satisfies. Each moment you spend strengthening your relationship with yourself is an investment in unshakable inner peace. Loneliness only exists when you are disconnected from yourself. When you reconnect, when you truly begin to enjoy your own company, the fear of being alone dissolves. You realize that solitude is not a gap to be filled, but a space to be expanded. Within that space, you can grow, heal, and evolve without interference. You can reflect on your dreams without distortion, hear your intuition more clearly, and align your actions with what truly matters to you. That is why learning to be happy alone is not just about comfort. It is about alignment with your highest self. Psychology teaches that humans thrive when their sense of autonomy is strong. The more independent you feel emotionally, the less likely you are to be shaken by rejection, disappointment, or loss. This autonomy comes from building trust in yourself. When you spend time alone, when you sit in silence, when you allow yourself to feel without running away, you build that trust. You prove to yourself that you can handle your own emotions, that you can hold your own weight, that you do not need someone else to carry you. That realization transforms you from the inside out. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop fearing abandonment. You stop compromising your standards just to keep someone close. Instead, you rise into a new level of strength where your relationships, your choices, and your goals come from a place of wholeness, not lack. And when you approach life from wholeness, you naturally attract what is healthy, meaningful, and lasting. The peace you cultivate in solitude becomes a shield. It protects you from being consumed by negativity, from being swayed by judgment, from being destroyed by change. With that peace, you walk into the world differently. You no longer cling to people, opportunities, or circumstances out of desperation. You engage with them out of choice. You no longer beg for love. You give it freely, and you receive it freely because it no longer defines you. Happiness alone is not about isolation. It is about liberation. It is the key that unlocks the door to true freedom, where your worth is no longer conditional, your peace is no longer fragile, and your strength is no longer dependent on anyone else. Alone you rise. Alone you become whole. Alone you discover the power that has been within you all along. The deepest peace you will ever feel is the moment you stop running from yourself. Most people are at war within, chasing approval, chasing distraction, chasing anything to avoid looking inward. But when you finally decide to stop escaping and start embracing, you unlock a level of freedom that no external condition can match. You begin to understand that happiness has never been hidden in the outside world. It has always been waiting inside you, buried beneath layers of noise, fear, and expectation. When you strip those layers away, you reconnect with the part of yourself that is whole, unshaken, and eternally enough. Solitude is the doorway to that discovery. It creates the space for you to see yourself without distortion. Without comparison, you recognize your own worth. Without distraction, you rediscover your own clarity. Without outside pressure, you hear the quiet wisdom of your own intuition. This is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the fullness of being, complete in your own presence without needing anyone to confirm it for you. When you can sit in that fullness, you no longer fear loss because you realize you cannot lose yourself. The human mind is conditioned to seek safety and belonging, but true safety comes from belonging to yourself first. When you anchor your worth internally, rejection loses its power. Abandonment no longer feels like the end of the world. Silence no longer feels unbearable. You become the safe place you've always been searching for. That is why learning to be happy alone is not just about peace. It is about reclaiming your power. It is about no longer handing control of your emotions to people who may or may not honor them. It is about finally stepping into ownership of your own life. When you know how to be happy alone, every relationship you choose becomes healthier. You no longer enter connections out of fear of being left behind. You no longer accept less than you deserve just to avoid solitude. Instead, you approach people from a place of strength, where love is a choice, not a necessity for survival. You give freely, without attachment, because you are not trying to fill a void. You receive love without dependency, because your wholeness is already intact. This is the foundation of lasting peace. Love that flows without fear, connection that exists without chains. The greatest reward of solitude is that it teaches you self-trust. It shows you that you can carry yourself through pain, through silence, through uncertainty. You do not need constant reassurance. You do not need constant company. You do not need constant validation. You already have within you the ability to stand strong, to create peace, and to live with joy no matter the circumstances. And when you trust yourself at that level, you walk differently, you live differently, you rise differently. Happiness born in solitude is happiness that cannot be broken. It is not fragile because it does not depend on shifting circumstances. It does not vanish when people leave, and it does not crumble when situations change. It is steady, rooted, and unshakable. That is the kind of happiness that gives you true peace. That is the kind of peace that turns solitude into strength and silence into power. And once you taste it, you will never again see being alone as something to fear. You will see it as the place where you found yourself. There's a profound strength in knowing that you can stand alone and still feel complete. That strength is not arrogance, and it is not isolation. It is freedom. It is the freedom of no longer needing the world to constantly remind you that you are enough. It is the freedom of walking into any situation with calm assurance, because you are not searching for yourself in someone else's eyes. You already know who you are, and you already know your value. That knowledge makes you unshakable. Most people spend their lives trying to escape solitude because they confuse quiet with emptiness. But solitude, when embraced, is not a void. It is the richest ground for growth. In that stillness, you discover your deepest truths. You begin to separate what is truly yours from what the world has placed upon you. You begin to see the difference between what you genuinely desire and what you were conditioned to chase. That clarity only comes when the noise fades. That clarity only comes when you allow yourself to sit with silence and see it as a mirror instead of an enemy. When you find happiness in your own company, you break free from the chains of dependency. You stop waiting for others to give you permission to feel good about yourself. You stop tying your emotions to someone else's attention. You stop measuring your worth by how much love you receive from the outside. Instead, you cultivate an inner source of joy that flows without interruption. This is the foundation of emotional resilience. When you can generate your own peace, no rejection can destroy you, no absence can weaken you, and no loss can strip you of your wholeness. Psychology shows that emotional independence is the root of authentic confidence. It is not about being cold or detached. It is about knowing that you are safe within yourself. This kind of confidence is magnetic. It attracts healthy connections because people can sense that you are not looking to be rescued. You are not desperate for validation. You are complete, and from that completeness, you invite others into your life without fear. That is the beauty of learning to be happy alone. It transforms every relationship you have because you no longer come from a place of need, but from a place of strength. The silence that once felt heavy becomes a sanctuary. The moments that once felt unbearable become moments of healing. What you once feared becomes what you now cherish because you realize that every second spent with yourself is an opportunity to grow deeper roots of peace. With those roots, you stand firm no matter what storms arrive. With those roots, you rise higher than you ever thought possible. The reward for embracing solitude is far greater than comfort. It is liberation. You free yourself from the endless cycle of seeking, clinging, and fearing. You step into a life where you are whole on your own, where you are calm in your own presence, and where you are strong enough to choose connections without ever depending on them for survival. This is the essence of true peace, the realization that you carry within you everything you need to live fully, joyfully, and fearlessly, no matter who stands beside you or who does not. True happiness alone begins when you stop seeing yourself as unfinished. Too often, people carry the belief that they are incomplete until someone else enters their life to fill the missing pieces. This mindset creates a constant hunger a restless search, a dependence that leaves them vulnerable to disappointment. But the reality is that you were never broken. You were never half. You've always been whole. And the moment you recognize that wholeness is the moment you step into true peace. The need for external completion is an illusion born from fear. Fear convinces you that your worth lies outside yourself, that love must be earned, that acceptance must be given, and that happiness must be shared to be real. But fear is a liar. It keeps you chained to situations that do not serve you and tied to people who do not value you. It whispers that solitude is dangerous when, in truth, solitude is where your power awakens. By breaking that illusion, you reclaim your life from the grip of fear. You stop searching outside and start nurturing within. The mind grows stronger when it learns to be still. The heart grows freer when it no longer clings. The spirit grows lighter when it recognizes that peace is not a gift from others, but a choice you give yourself. This is not about rejecting connection. It is about elevating it. When you are happy alone, every bond you create with others becomes healthier because it is no longer built on desperation. You no longer take from others what you should be giving yourself. Instead, you share from a place of abundance. You give love without draining yourself, and you receive it without losing yourself. That balance is only possible when you first find peace in your own company. Research shows that solitude, when embraced with intention, increases self-awareness, strengthens emotional regulation, and builds resilience. It allows you to hear your inner voice without distortion. It gives you the clarity to recognize unhealthy patterns and the courage to break them. It frees you from the cycle of dependency and teaches you to trust your own strength. This is why solitude is not weakness, it is training. Every moment you spend learning to be happy alone is a moment you are building unshakable resilience for the challenges of life. When you embrace being alone, you stop fearing endings. You stop fearing loss. You stop fearing rejection. You know that whatever happens, you can carry yourself through it. That knowledge changes how you show up in the world. It makes you calmer in conflict, more confident in decisions, and more authentic in every interaction. Because you no longer need others to complete you. You are free to connect in truth without pretending, without settling, without hiding who you really are. Peace is not found in the absence of solitude, but in the mastery of it. Happiness is not found in clinging to others, but in standing whole within yourself. Freedom is not found in avoiding silence, but in embracing it until it becomes your strength. When you truly understand this, you stop fearing solitude forever. You welcome it, you honor it, and through it, you rise into the most powerful version of yourself, whole, unbreakable, and free. The ability to be happy alone is the ability to take back your power from everything you cannot control. It is the refusal to let circumstances dictate your state of mind, the decision to stop depending on the unpredictable behavior of others, and the choice to stand rooted in your own strength. The world constantly shifts, people change, relationships end, situations evolve. But when your peace comes from within, none of those changes can break you. You become steady in the midst of uncertainty, calm in the face of storms, and free in a way that most people never experience. So much of human suffering comes from attachment, the need to hold on, the fear of losing, the desperation to keep what was never meant to stay. But when you learn to be happy alone, you loosen that grip. You stop suffocating yourself with the weight of control. You begin to release what is beyond you and embrace what is within you. That shift creates a peace that no external force can take away. It teaches you that your joy does not have to collapse when things don't go your way, and your worth does not have to crumble when someone else walks away. When you cultivate happiness alone, you begin to live with intention instead of reaction. You stop chasing every distraction the world throws at you, and you start choosing what aligns with your soul. You no longer reach for empty validation because you already know who you are. You no longer beg for acceptance because you have already accepted yourself. That internal alignment is the foundation of authenticity. It allows you to live in a way that feels real, not forced, and honest, not performed. Science confirms that self-sufficient happiness creates mental resilience. People who can find joy in solitude experience less anxiety, less dependency, and greater clarity in decision-making. Their minds are not constantly pulled in 1,000 directions, and their emotions are not held hostage by external validation. Instead, they operate from a grounded center, which makes them stronger, calmer, and more capable of facing life's challenges. This is the kind of resilience you build when you stop fearing solitude and start embracing it as your greatest ally. Being happy alone does not mean you reject love, connection, or relationships. It means you no longer use them as crutches. You no longer need someone to carry the weight of your happiness. You bring your own happiness into every connection, and that changes everything. It makes love more genuine, friendships more stable, and connections more balanced. You are not trying to be saved. You are choosing to share your wholeness. That choice transforms not only how you experience others, but also how others experience you. The peace you find in solitude becomes a source of confidence. It allows you to walk into the world without fear of rejection, without fear of abandonment, without fear of being misunderstood. You know that even if people fail to see your worth, you will not lose it. You know that even if people walk away, you will not collapse. You carry yourself differently when you know you are complete on your own. That is true power. That is true freedom. And once you claim it, no one and nothing can take it from you. The greatest shift happens when you stop looking at solitude as something you must endure and start seeing it as something you can embrace. The silence that once felt heavy becomes the very ground where you build your strength. The stillness that once felt unbearable becomes the space where you hear the truth of your own voice. The absence you once feared becomes the presence you never knew you needed, your own presence. This is not loneliness. This is liberation. This is where you finally step into the reality that you are enough, always have been enough, and will always remain enough. When you learn to enjoy being alone, you take away the power that fear once had over you. Fear of abandonment dissolves. Fear of rejection loses its grip. Fear of silence no longer controls you. Instead of dreading the moments when no one else is around, you begin to treasure them because they become your sanctuary. They become the place where you recharge, the place where you realign, the place where you remember who you are. The person who fears solitude will always be chained by it, but the one who embraces it becomes untouchable. Every great transformation begins within. When you sit with yourself and stop running, you begin to see the patterns that hold you back. You see the beliefs that limit you, the habits that weaken you, the thoughts that poison your peace. In solitude, you have the chance to face them and break them. This is not weakness. It is the deepest strength. It takes courage to confront yourself. It takes resilience to sit in silence with your own thoughts. And it takes wisdom to understand that healing comes not from avoiding yourself, but from meeting yourself fully. Happiness in solitude is not about isolation from the world. It is about integration with yourself. It is about aligning your inner world so deeply that no external storm can shake it. This alignment allows you to live with clarity. It helps you make decisions from peace rather than panic. It empowers you to choose relationships, goals, and paths that reflect your true values instead of your fears. When your foundation is solid, everything you build on top of it becomes stronger. That is the gift of solitude. It strengthens your roots so your branches can reach further. Research shows that those who embrace solitude experience greater emotional stability, sharper creativity, and deeper self-awareness. But beyond the science, there is a deeper truth. Solitude reconnects you to your essence. It clears the noise and brings you back to the simple, undeniable reality that your worth is not conditional. You do not need to perform for it, beg for it, or prove it. It is already within you. When you fully accept this, the pressure to constantly seek outside approval dissolves, and in its place comes peace that no circumstance can disturb. This is what it means to be truly free, not freedom from people, not freedom from life's challenges, but freedom from the belief that you are incomplete without anything outside of you. When you stand in that true solitude, no longer frightens you. It empowers you. It strengthens you. It becomes the very foundation of the life you were always meant to live, strong, whole, and deeply at peace. The moment you no longer fear standing alone, the world begins to open in ways it never could before. You are no longer chasing acceptance, no longer shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You stop begging for permission to exist fully, because you finally understand that the only validation you will ever truly need is the one that comes from within. This realization strips away the illusions that once held you captive. It tears down the walls of dependence, and in their place, it builds the unshakable confidence of someone who knows their own worth without question. When you stop relying on others to define you, you reclaim the energy that was once wasted on proving yourself. That energy becomes fuel. It becomes the force that drives your growth, your discipline, your vision. You channel it into building rather than chasing, into creating rather than convincing, into becoming rather than pretending. That is the power of self-alignment. It takes the scattered fragments of your focus and forges them into unbreakable strength. The same silence that once felt like emptiness now echoes with possibility. The same solitude that once felt like punishment now feels like freedom. From this state of alignment, clarity emerges. You begin to see what truly matters, and more importantly, you begin to see what never did. The drama, the noise, the opinions that once consumed your mind suddenly lose their grip. You realize that none of it defines you, none of it sustains you, and none of it deserves to control you. You are no longer a prisoner of comparison or a slave to expectation. You stand firm in your own lane, eyes forward, heart steady, and mind clear. That is the strength solitude gives you, the ability to move through life with purpose instead of distraction. This clarity transforms how you respond to life's challenges. Instead of reacting out of desperation, you respond out of composure. Instead of breaking under pressure, you bend but do not fall. Instead of clinging to what is leaving, you trust in what is unfolding. You no longer fear endings because you know they only create room for new beginnings. You no longer dread uncertainty because you understand that within the unknown lies every possibility. You no longer resent the process because you see that everything shaping you is preparing you for the greatness you are capable of carrying. The shift is not about becoming invulnerable, it is about becoming unshakable. Pain will still exist, challenges will still appear, but you will meet them from a higher place. You will no longer crumble when people walk away, when life throws setbacks, or when the world fails to applaud you. You will remain grounded because you have built yourself on something eternal, your own inner strength. That is the kind of power no one can give you and no one can take away. When you arrive at this place, you stop searching for fulfillment in temporary things. You stop living for surface level validation. You stop needing to be everything to everyone. Instead, you live in alignment with yourself fully, unapologetically, and without compromise. And that is when life begins to respond differently to you. Opportunities that match your strength appear. Relationships that reflect your growth arrive. Doors that once seemed closed begin to open. Not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person who naturally attracts them. That is the reward of self-mastery. It changes not only how you see yourself, but how the entire world sees you. The strength you build within yourself is not meant to make you cold, distant, or unfeeling. It is meant to make you unbreakable in a world that constantly tests your resolve. When you master your inner world, you stop living at the mercy of circumstances and begin living from a place of intention. You rise each day with a sense of clarity that no external noise can distort. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence, not because life is easy, but because you've proven to yourself that no matter what comes, you can endure, adapt, and overcome. That is the essence of true freedom, the ability to walk through chaos without losing your center. When you no longer depend on others to fuel your identity, you awaken a deeper power that cannot be touched by disappointment or rejection. You stop shrinking when people fail to recognize your value because you have already recognized it for yourself. You stop doubting your path when others question it because you know that their vision is not meant to replace your own. The strength you hold becomes the anchor that keeps you steady while the world around you shifts and spins, and from this steadiness, you no longer just survive, you begin to create, expand, and rise. Every distraction loses its weight when you are focused on your higher purpose. The need to prove yourself fades. The desire to compete fades. The urge to compare fades. What remains is a steady, unshakable drive to become the fullest expression of who you were created to be. You begin to realize that greatness has never been about being better than anyone else. It has always been about being better than who you were yesterday. That mindset shift alone frees you from battles that were never worth fighting. It liberates you from the exhaustion of living for appearances and pulls you into the infinite energy of living for truth. As your alignment deepens, you feel your perspective shift on everything around you. You start noticing how much energy people waste worrying about things that don't matter. You see how much potential is lost to fear, how many dreams are abandoned in the name of comfort, how much greatness is buried under the weight of approval seeking. And while it could make you bitter, it does not. It makes you determined to rise above the traps that consume so many, determined to live as proof that it is possible to be both grounded and limitless, both humble and powerful, both present and unshakably driven. This determination becomes a fire within you. It is not loud, not desperate, not erratic. It is steady, calm, and relentless. It is the kind of fire that cannot be extinguished because it does not rely on external fuel. It is born from within. And when you carry that fire, the setbacks that once would have broken you now serve only as fuel to make you stronger. The silence that once felt lonely now feels sacred. The solitude that once felt empty now feels abundant. The challenges that once felt like punishments now feel like pathways to mastery. The life you create from this state of strength is not ordinary because it is not built on shallow foundations. It is built on discipline, clarity, and courage. It is built on the refusal to compromise your essence for temporary approval. It is built on the conviction that you are worthy of everything you envision, not because someone else says so, but because you have chosen to believe it and to act on it every single day. That is the level of power that transforms not only your life, but the lives of everyone who witnesses it. And that is what you are being called to rise into now. When you reach the point where your peace no longer depends on anyone else, you enter a state of mastery that few ever discover. You no longer wait for the world to give you permission to feel whole. You no longer wait for love, validation, or recognition to make you feel alive. You stand firm in the realization that your worth is not up for debate, not up for negotiation, not subject to the shifting opinions of others. And in that realization, you find a level of freedom that changes everything. This freedom is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It radiates in the way you move, in the way you think, in the way you live. People may not always understand it, but they will feel it. They will sense the strength of someone who is no longer afraid to be alone because you are no longer at war with yourself. That quiet power speaks louder than any words could. It is magnetic, it is undeniable, and it cannot be faked because it comes from deep inner work and alignment. The truth is, most people spend their lives searching for happiness in places it was never meant to be found. They chase relationships, possessions, achievements, hoping each one will fill the void. But the void was never outside of them, it was within. And the only way to fill it is to reconnect to the self that was buried under fear, doubt, and expectation. When you finally do that, when you finally come home to yourself, you discover the kind of joy that does not vanish when circumstances change. It is steady, it is enduring, it is real. This is why solitude is not your enemy, but your greatest teacher. It shows you who you are without the noise, without the masks, without the distractions. It strips away what is false and reveals what is true. And once you have seen your truth, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to living small, to hiding, to pretending. You are forced to rise because you know what is at stake if you don't. You know that peace is not something that finds you. It is something you create, something you protect, something you choose. Choosing it means letting go of attachments that no longer serve you. It means breaking free from the need to control how others see you. It means finding strength in silence, even when the world tells you that silence is weakness. And as you let go of what is unnecessary, you create space for what is essential: clarity, focus, alignment, and love that is pure because it is not rooted in desperation, but in wholeness. From this place, life feels lighter, not because challenges disappear, but because they no longer define you. You begin to see every difficulty as an opportunity to grow stronger, every ending as a doorway to a new beginning, every moment of solitude as a chance to deepen your connection to yourself. This mindset shift is the turning point where happiness stops being something you pursue and becomes something you embody. You were not meant to live chasing fragments of peace. You were meant to become peace. And when you step into that truth, when you finally accept that everything you need is already within you, there is nothing left to fear. Solitude no longer feels like absence. It feels like abundance. And in that abundance, you find the power to rise into the highest version of yourself, unshakable, complete, and free. The most profound realization comes when you no longer see solitude as empty space, but as sacred ground. It is not a void to escape from, but a sanctuary to step into. Within that sanctuary, you discover that happiness is not fragile, not conditional, not something that can be stolen. It is rooted in you, sustained by you, and unshaken by what happens outside of you. This is where your true power begins, When you stop searching for peace in the temporary and start creating it in the eternal presence of your own being. Every moment you spend alone becomes an invitation to connect more deeply with yourself, to breathe without pressure, to think without interruption, to feel without judgment. These moments build the strength that no crowd can give you. They teach you patience, they sharpen your awareness, they ground you in the reality that you can stand fully on your own, not because you reject the world, but because you have built such an unshakable foundation that nothing outside can collapse it. It is here that you realize how much of your life has been shaped by noise that was never yours to carry. The opinions, the expectations, the comparisons, they melt away in the presence of solitude, and what remains is your truth, raw and undeniable. It may challenge you, it may even scare you, but it is yours. And once you embrace it, you step into a life of authenticity so rare that it naturally brings peace. No pretending, no masks, no desperate pursuit of acceptance, just alignment with who you truly are. This alignment transforms the way you move through the world. You no longer cling to people out of fear of being left behind. You no longer chase achievements just to prove your worth. You no longer attach your joy to circumstances you cannot control. Instead, you operate from a deeper place, a place of self-trust, of certainty, of unshakable peace. And from that place, every decision becomes clearer, every step becomes more purposeful, and every challenge becomes a chance to rise higher. The truth is, solitude sharpens you. It reveals weaknesses so you can transform them into strengths. It highlights distractions so you can cut them away. It exposes the noise so you can return to silence. And it is in that silence that your greatest clarity is born. The world may tell you that silence is emptiness, but you will know that silence is creation. It is the soil where vision grows. It is the space where strength multiplies. It is the ground where peace is cultivated and protected. The more comfortable you become with yourself, the less power the outside world has over you. You stop fearing rejection because you no longer reject yourself. You stop fearing abandonment because you no longer abandon yourself. You stop fearing solitude because it no longer feels like being alone. It feels like finally being whole. That is where true happiness lives. Not in constant distraction, not in endless validation, but in the deep, unshakable knowing that you are enough right here, right now. And from this knowing, life changes. Love becomes pure because you no longer seek it from emptiness. Success becomes clearer because you no longer chase it for approval. Peace becomes constant because it no longer depends on anything outside of you. This is what it means to master solitude. This is what it means to find true happiness, not by escaping yourself, but by meeting yourself fully and realizing you were complete all along. When you stop running from yourself and finally stand still in the presence of your own being, you feel a shift that cannot be explained by words alone. It is as if the weight you carried for years begins to dissolve because you realize it was never truly yours. The fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being unseen, these fears lose their grip the moment you recognize that your existence itself is proof of your worth. You are not here by accident. You are not incomplete. You are not lacking. You are whole. And that wholeness is what solitude brings into focus. The mind has been conditioned to believe that peace comes from the outside, from people, from places, from possessions. But when you step into stillness, when you cut through the noise, you uncover the truth that peace has always been an inside job. It has always been waiting for you, buried under the distractions of comparison, under the pressure of expectations, under the illusion that you must become something more before you can feel complete. But solitude strips those illusions away. It leaves you with the reality that nothing external has the power to complete you because you are already complete. This realization changes the way you see everything. The moments that once felt unbearable now feel like blessings. The silence that once felt heavy now feels alive. The time alone that once felt empty now feels sacred. And the more you lean into it, the more you discover that solitude is not punishment. It is preparation. It is preparing you to rise above the need for validation. It is preparing you to walk with a calm strength that others cannot shake. It is preparing you to lead a life defined not by dependency, but by authenticity. From this space, every relationship you build becomes stronger because you are no longer seeking to be saved. You are seeking to connect. You no longer enter relationships to fill a void, but to share your wholeness. You no longer fear being left behind because you know you can stand tall on your own. This is the power of solitude. It does not isolate you from love. It makes you more capable of love. It does not harden you. It softens you into truth. It does not make you distant. It makes you more present because you are no longer distracted by the constant chase for approval. The greatest peace you will ever experience comes when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop trying to escape silence and instead embrace it as your greatest ally. That is where growth happens. That is where clarity emerges. That is where strength is born. And once you taste that level of inner freedom, you will never want to go back. You will never again fear being alone because you will know that solitude is not the absence of connection. It is the deepest connection you can ever have. The connection with your own soul. Happiness that comes from within is untouchable. It cannot be stolen by rejection. It cannot be broken by loss. It cannot be shaken by uncertainty. It endures because it does not rely on fragile conditions. It lives within you, waiting to be embraced. And the moment you accept this truth, you unlock a peace that no storm can destroy. You stop chasing happiness and start embodying it. You stop fearing solitude and start cherishing it. And in that shift, you find the true freedom and peace you were always searching for.